"Don't worry, Barbara. We just want someone a little more streamlined for the pitch." That was the moment. That was when Barbara knew she was about to be professionally ghosted by a guy whose idea of product strategy was whatever looked good in a deck at 144 DPI. Brent, our COO, whose resume had more buzzwords than working neurons, flashed that smug little smirk as he twirled a Sharpie in his fingers like it was a baton of executive authority. She stared at him across the glass conference table, one hand still on her laptop, the other clutching a coffee she'd nuked twice that morning. It was lukewarm. So was the lie. Streamlined meant they were ditching her for Brent's favorite flavor of the month. Gavin, a product manager whose main qualifications included hair gel, air quotes, once saying synergy unironically during a Slack huddle. This wasn't Barbara's first rodeo. She'd spent 7 years in the server guts of Quantexus, helping stitch together the AI workflows that made their tool actually function, back-end logic that translated into millions in revenue, and had recently caught the attention of Vetra Group, a Fortune 100 buyer with a $150 million offer dangling over their heads. And now, at the 11th hour, he was being handed a smile and shown the door, all because Brent wanted optics. What he meant was, you built the machine, but we need someone prettier to drive it into the showroom. And look, if you're still listening, and you're one of the 93% of folks who haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. Like the story if you've ever watched a coworker take credit for your entire project while you sat in the background eating sadness and string cheese. It helps the team more than Brent helps anyone. Back to the nonsense. It started subtly. Brent began excluding her from prep calls with Vetra's integration team. Meetings she'd normally lead now had her name missing from the calendar invites. When she asked why, she got the corporate equivalent of a blank shrug and a wheel circle back. Then came the changes to the product. Small at first, icons moved. Tooltips were written by Gavin to include things like elevated enablement flow. Barbara raised a brow, because enablement flow meant nothing. But Brent ate it up like stale donuts in a finance meeting. He told the team they were sanitizing complexity to keep the demo tight. She countered, professionally, that removing the rollback history module would risk corrupting the live pipeline, was met with a condescending pat on the metaphorical head and, "Let's keep things digestible, Barb." He said her name like it tasted like bad tuna. A week out from the pitch, she logged in to find her credentials downgraded, subtle things at first. No access to push code to the staging server, no admin privileges in the user manager. She messaged IT. They told her the request came from above. That night, she opened the admin audit log, one she personally built to meet ISO compliance standards, and began exporting everything. Every admin login, every change request, every deletion. It tracked IPs, user IDs, timestamps down to the millisecond. It even captured rollback attempts and failed permissions overrides. She encrypted the file, split it into 3 shards, and stored each on a different drive. One in the cloud, one on a USB she kept in her work bag, one printed out and slid behind her kid's framed soccer photo on her desk at home. Petty? Maybe. Smart? Absolutely. The cherry on this corporate turd Sunday came 2 days before the demo, when Brent walked into the main dev pit and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "We've got this from here, folks. Let's let the creatives take over." He didn't look at Barbara when he said it. He didn't need to. She got the message loud and clear. This wasn't just about optics anymore. Brent was orchestrating a full erasure, but Barbara didn't argue. She didn't shout. She didn't even sigh. She just opened a new folder on her desktop, titled it "When This Blows Up," and she waited. The first thing they gutted was the pipeline sync validator. Brent called it a distraction. Barbara called it the only thing standing between a clean demo and a Category 5 failure. But that didn't matter, not when Brent had already decided that back-end logic was too ugly for the PowerPoint crowd. He strutted into the dev pit that Monday like he was auditioning for a role he already cast himself in. "We're simplifying," he announced, gesturing like a magician unveiling a top hat full of bad decisions. "No one needs to see the guts. We give him the glow, not the growl." Gavin, the hand-picked Ken doll, nodded solemnly. "Buyers want clean. No friction, no questions." Barbara bit her tongue so hard she tasted iron. She'd warned them, remove the validator, and the AI pipeline could return false passes on incomplete datasets. If Vetra tried running their own sample through the system and didn't hit the validator flags, they'd assume the tool was dumb because without that flag it was. She pulled Brent aside, keeping her voice low, calm, clinical. You're removing guardrails. If the product breaks mid-demo, it won't be on the code. It'll be on your decisions. Brent didn't flinch. He gave her a patronizing half-smile, like a dog trainer trying to hush a barking mutt. It's showtime. Stay out of it. That was the line. Stay out of it, she nodded. And that's when Barbara knew she was done trying to warn anyone. They didn't want her input. They wanted her gone. But what Brent didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that, while they'd been polishing the top layer of the product like a turd with glitter, been building its nervous system with forensic-grade transparency. That audit log wasn't just some compliance checkbox. It was a living record. Every admin move, every backend toggle, every permission change, rollback, deleted feature, and ghosted flag, all marked, all stamped, all stored. She logged in one final time from her machine. Access was already throttled. The deployment pipeline console was locked to read-only. She still had admin on the audit log module. Apparently, Brent forgot she built it outside the standard container, with a fallback credential in case staging ever lost its tokens. Amateur move. She navigated to the log's export interface. Set the range, last 60 days. Filter, all admin actions. Scope, full environment, including sandbox, staging, and COO. The download took 6 minutes. 79 megabytes of pure accountability. Saved the file under a dummy name, QTX Tax Docs Q3. Zip, and encrypted it with a salted passphrase only she would understand. Her old cat's name, plus the timestamp of the first code, commit on the project. Then she split the archive into 3 shards. One went to a clean flash drive buried inside an old Altoids tin on her desk. The second uploaded to a dead Dropbox folder attached to an email she hadn't used in years and created back when she applied for Dungeons & Dragons group in Cincinnati. The third, printed, line by line. She used the printer on the 3rd floor where Brent's badge didn't log access, folded the sheets into a manila envelope labeled Lunch and Learn, and tucked it inside her gym bag. By the time the team left that evening, laughing about clean design and ClickPath minimalism, Barbara sat quietly in the dark corner of the dev floor, laptop closed, eyes forward. She looked like someone reviewing wireframes. What she was really doing was writing names. A list of who signed off on what. Brent, Gavin, Linda from UX who rubber-stamped the new front-end patch that routed all errors into a silent loop. She wasn't angry anymore. Anger was messy, unpredictable. Barbara was something much more dangerous now. She was prepared. And Brent was walking into a pitch with a broken product, a neutered backend, a trail of digital breadcrumbs so damning they might as well have been written in blood. He just didn't know it yet. At 7:42 a.m. on demo day, Barbara swiped her badge at the south entrance of the Quantexus building like she had every morning for the past 7 years. Red light. No click. She tried again, slower this time. Same result. Just that mechanical cough of rejection from the lock, like the building itself was spitting her out. Junior HR rep named Cassie appeared from behind the security desk, holding a phone like it was a live grenade she didn't want to drop. Hey Barb. Yeah, looks like there's a temporary badge system outage affecting a few folks. Her voice cracked like she knew she was lying, but hoped maybe Barbara wouldn't notice. It's on it. In the meantime, maybe just take the day? Barbara stared at her. Take the day? Cassie gave a weak smile. Kind you reserve for someone whose dog just got hit by a mail truck. It's all under control, promise. Brent said the pitch is covered. There it was. That was the line she didn't know she was waiting for. Brent said the pitch is covered. Translation, we've deleted you from your own build. Now go grab a coffee and stay out of the frame. Barbara didn't speak, didn't blink. She just turned around, walked calmly to the parking garage, sat in her car, and opened her laptop. No VPN access. No Slack access. No GitHub deployment keys. Email locked. The engine she built, the pipeline she architected, the structure she practically hand-coded from version 0.1 was now running without her. They didn't just lock her out of the building, they tried to erase her. It was a hell of a thing, that kind of humiliation. It's not loud, it's not public, it's quiet, it's surgical, executed behind closed doors in sanitized language, streamlining roles, reducing surface tension, reallocating demo-facing staff. It doesn't bleed, it evaporates you. For a few minutes, she sat there in silence, engine idling, fingers frozen above her keyboard. Then she shut the laptop and pulled out the envelope. Inside were the printed audit logs, pages and pages of time-stamped activity, deleted rollback validators, stripped modules, disabled logging layers, and finally, the credential changes. Brent's ID, Gavin's ID, changes made at 11:14 p.m. the night before. She held the paper up to the windshield. Sunlight poured through the numbers like holy scripture. That's when the shift happened. Something inside her clicked from humiliation to calculation. Her eyes stopped burning, her jaw unclenched. The rage calcified into focus, cold and precise. If Brent thought she'd go quietly, didn't understand the first rule of code, everything leaves a trace. She drove 3 blocks away, parked behind a greasy Thai place that didn't open until noon, and tethered her laptop to a burner hotspot she kept for testing mobile breakpoints. And there it was, one open port, one legacy dev tunnel Brent hadn't thought to revoke because it wasn't labeled with her name. She was in, not into the main system, not anymore, but just enough to watch. Opened the system dashboard and pulled up the live status monitor for the AI pipeline. CPU usage was spiking. Memory leaks were starting to stack. Something was running hot under the hood, and they hadn't even started the live demo yet. Barbara smiled, slow and small. Let them have their spotlight. Let them charm Vetra with their buzzwords and polished UI. Let them walk onto that stage thinking the show was theirs. Because deep under all that polish, engine was sputtering. And Brent had no idea he was stepping into his own live autopsy. And Barbara, she wasn't locked out. She was logged in with a front row seat. The red dot appeared at exactly 10:06 a.m. on the admin overlay, a live indicator that someone had just clicked the demo environment's data insights sync module. Barbara was watching from a stripped-down developer terminal in an old QA test room no one used anymore. It was the digital equivalent of a janitor's closet, dusty, ignored, and still wired into the mainframe because no one remembered to decommission it. She had found her seat at the table after all, just not the one they expected. From her perch in the shadows, she watched the system metrics roll in, RAM spikes, delayed thread queues, and rising packet failure rates. Everything looked pretty on the surface, but under the hood, it was like someone had crammed a V8 into a microwave. And that red dot, that was her old module, the one they stripped down for simplicity. The one she warned would collapse without the validator active. She zoomed in on the metrics and saw it, rollback function, disabled. They hadn't just removed the validator. They'd gutted the safety switch too. No rollbacks, no recovery, no failsafe. So if anything went wrong during the demo, there'd be no way back. Opened her notebook, the physical one she always carried, and jotted a single word, watch. The screen flickered as the buyer's team navigated to the smart mapping dashboard, Barbara's pride and joy. A feature that had once required months of cross-team coordination, recursive logic checks, and a custom-built load balancer to keep it stable. Brent had deleted half that infrastructure with a single late-night purge labeled Demo Simplification Final. And now, if in front of Vetra's full evaluation committee, they clicked the module. The UI hesitated, spinning wheel, a full 6 seconds. In the room next door, she could hear Brent talking fast, filling the air with buzzwords and nervous chuckles. Gavin jumped in too, trying to distract with some nonsense about AI alignment architecture. The wheel kept spinning. And then, error 503, backend timeout. The screen went white. The buyer's lead engineer leaned forward. Barbara couldn't hear them, but she saw it. The shift in posture. The way one of them tilted their head like a dog hearing a strange noise. Then they clicked again, this time on the rollback to previous state button. Barbara held her breath, not because she didn't know what would happen, but because she did. Nothing. The button was dead. The function was gone. The buyer's engineer clicked twice more, rapidly. Still nothing. The system was locked mid-failure, unable to roll back, recover, even log the crash cleanly. It was stuck. Gavin tried rebooting the front-end overlay, but it only brought up a gray placeholder with lorem ipsum text and a loading spinner, something Brent had pushed late last night as a temp patch. Barbara leaned back in her chair and watched as Brent's confidence cracked. His voice rose slightly through the thin wall. "It's just a minor hiccup, we'll reroute." The buyer interrupted. That much she could hear, his tone clipped, flat, surgical. "Is this the final build?" Brent hesitated. "This is the optimized version, yes." Barbara muttered under her breath, optimized like a toaster in a bathtub. More errors started rolling in. One by one, features began disappearing from the demo environment. The backend logic was collapsing in slow motion, like a building whose support beams had been quietly unscrewed, now toppling under the weight of its own arrogance. Barbara refreshed the admin overlay. The red dot was gone. Module had crashed completely. She looked down at her notebook again and wrote one more word under watch, collapse. Then she closed the notebook and stood. She didn't need to see the rest. The pitch was over. The lights hadn't gone out, but the room was already dark. And Brent had just deleted $150 million with a smile on his face and no clue what he'd done. Barbara was halfway through a stale turkey sandwich in her car, parked under the only oak tree in the Quantex's lot that still had leaves on it, when the message came through. Linked in notification, one new message sender. Colin Haynes title, Principal Systems Architect, Vetra Group. Hi Barbara. Quick question, were you part of the original design team for the Quantex's pipeline engine? No emojis, no fluff, just surgical curiosity. Barbara stared at the message like it had teeth. She tapped out her reply slowly, every letter a tiny controlled burn. I was the design team, not arrogance, just fact. The architecture had her fingerprints on every layer, from sandbox routing logic to the custom recovery module Brent had deleted at 11:14 p.m. the night before the demo. She hit send. 2 minutes later, her phone rang. Unknown number, DC area code. She let it go to voicemail, then another call, same number. She answered on the third try, voice flat, emotionless. Barbara, the voice on the other end was calm, professional, but there was something under the surface, a tightness. A man who just watched $1 million machine fail and wanted to know why it exploded when he pressed the green button. Barbara, this is Colin Haynes from Vetra. Mind if I ask you a few questions? She took a long sip of her coffee, now room temperature and bitter. Before we go any further, is this conversation being recorded? A pause. No. Off the record. He didn't respond right away. Just leaned her head back against the car seat and stared at the cracks in the ceiling liner. Then, all right. The first few questions were basic. Was rollback functionality originally part of the engine? Yes. Was it functional in the demo? No. Do you know when it was removed? Check the audit log. 11:14 p.m., the night before the pitch. User ID ending in 7225. That's Brent's credential. Another pause. This log accessible? Barbara smiled, tight and cold. It is, but not on the Quantex's servers anymore. Could you share it? She didn't answer for a long beat. Let the silence hang until it felt like gravity. Then she said, I'll send you something. But you didn't get it from me. She reached into her bag and pulled out the flash drive, the one in the Altoids tin, plugged it into her laptop, and copied the encrypted audit archive to a clean, untraceable email draft. No text, no signature, just a ZIP file named QTX Legal Review Zip. Then she attached a short note, no more than one sentence, full audit trail, time-stamped, actions traceable. She didn't sign it, she just hit send. Back on the call, Colin exhaled slowly. This is incredibly helpful. Barbara let out a dry chuckle. That's what they used to say before they stopped inviting me to meetings. Is this something you'd be willing to walk us through? Confidentially. Of course, under what terms? I can run it through counsel, but off the record, we just want to understand what happened. If this audit log is what it looks like, Brent, well, he didn't just mismanage a demo. He may have compromised deal integrity. Barbara leaned forward, resting her elbow on the center console. Colin, your team saw a glitch. What you need to understand is that wasn't the product failing. No. It was the product reacting exactly the way I told them it would if they stripped out the rollback validators and pushed that patch. That wasn't a glitch. That was a warning. And now you've got the receipt. He was quiet for a moment, then said, almost cautiously, what happens if the board sees this? Barbara stared out the window at the Quantex's building. Brent was probably in there right now, pacing, blaming the servers, Gavin, or some poor junior dev who didn't know how to spell rollback, let alone implement one. They'll try to spin it, she said. They'll say it was a version mismatch or miscommunication or legacy code. But when you show them the log with Brent's name on the deletion line, another pause, they'll know. Colin was quiet again. Then, okay, we'll be in touch. She hung up. For a moment, Barbara just sat there, phone in her lap, watching the reflection of the Quantex's logo shimmer on her windshield like a ghost. She didn't feel vindicated yet. She just felt ready. The folder opened with a soft chime inside a dim conference room on the 32nd floor of Vetra's headquarters in Arlington. 6 people sat around a long walnut table. No buzzwords, no lattes, no BS. Just silence. Corporate graveyard silence, kind that only follows an investment team after something's gone sideways, and the air smells faintly of wasted money. Colin clicked the ZIP file Barbara had sent and extracted the contents to a secure desktop, off-network, isolated, with screen capture disabled. Inside, 3 subfolders. /logs/meta/deleted modules, and 1 readme txt file with a single line. Logs are timestamped, user ID linked. Look at 7:48 a.m. on demo day. No signature, no branding, no clue who it came from if you didn't already know. But Colin knew. And so did the lead buyer, a man named Darrell Franks, who wore $200 Skechers and smiled like a funeral director. He leaned forward as Colin opened the first log, sorted by timestamp, newest first. Lines of code rolled past like ticker tape. 7:48, 02 a.m. user ID. B-read 7225, deleted /core/validator/pipeline sync.js. 7:48, 08 a.m. user ID. B-read 7225, disabled rollback toggle in env vars JSON. 7:48, 19 a.m. user ID. B-read 7225, cleared logs for /rollback monitoring/. Franks tapped the table with one thick finger. Stop there. Colin froze the screen. Everyone leaned in. You're telling me, Franks said slowly, that the guy running the pitch demo deleted the pipeline sync validator the morning of the presentation? Yes, sir. 7:48 a.m. And turned off rollback? Yes. Wiped the logs that would have shown it? He tried. Colin double-clicked into the /deleted modules folder and pulled up a hashed archive, one Barbara had reconstructed using redundant sync flags Brent didn't even know existed. It was her failsafe, an echo of every file they thought they'd erased. Franks stared at the screen, jaw tight. The others in the room didn't speak. One of the lawyers reached for a pen, stopped halfway, just pressed her fingers into her temples, like she was trying to keep her skull from cracking open. The product Vetra had been evaluating for months, the one that had supposedly passed every stage of stress testing and compatibility review, had been silently sabotaged by the man selling it. Brent's name appeared over 100 times in the logs from the last 24 hours alone. Admin toggles, module deletions, environment patches, all done outside deployment windows, with no QA review and no version tracking. This wasn't a mistake. This was willful tampering. Colin opened the metadata file Barbara included, a spreadsheet auto-generated from the log system, color-coded, hyperlinked, and timestamped. Each row had 5 columns: timestamp user ID action type file /module system. Result row 327 made Franks whistle low. 10:06, 17 a.m. user ID. GSawyer 8184 clicked smart mapping module. 10:06, 23 a.m. system. Attempted sync right arrow sync validator not found. 10:06, 25 a.m. system. Attempted rollback right arrow rollback function disabled. 10:06, 28 a.m. system. Fatal timeout right arrow error 503. He sat back, eyes dark. So, click that crashed the pitch. Triggered a module she warned them not to touch. A module he neutered hours before go time. Colin nodded and tried to hide it, but she had the receipts. Franks cracked his knuckles. What's her name again? Colin hesitated. She didn't include it. Franks leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Find it. And tell her this, whatever they paid her, will pay 5 times more. One of the investment leads spoke for the first time. Are we still in talks with Quantexus? Franks didn't even blink. Not after this. The room went still again. On the screen, Brent's name kept popping up, over and over, like a digital confession typed in real time. Franks stood up, walked to the window, and stared down at the city below. When you delete the spine of a product and try to sell the skin, he said, you don't just break the deal. He turned around, dead calm. You tell us who you are. And now, thanks to the log Barbara built, Brent had done exactly that. Brent walked into the internal debrief like a man who just nailed the landing at the Olympics. Button down crisp, tie loose for that relatable leader vibe, coffee in hand like it, was a prop from a marketing shoot. He was glowing, talking loud, slapping backs, dropping phrases like great first impression and minor hiccup, as if the entire pitch hadn't faceplanted in front of a $150 million buyer. We got caught in a timeout loop. It happens, he said, chuckling as he pulled up a slide deck no one asked for. These things don't kill deals. Colin even said we showed strong fundamentals. He glanced around the room like he was fishing for nods. Gavin offered one, timid, sideways, very much the nod of a man who knew the iceberg had been hit but was still polishing the railings. The VP of Engineering, Rick Tanner, sat at the end of the table, arms crossed, face unreadable. 2 legal reps were seated beside him, both silent, both with closed laptops, still untouched. HR hovered near the coffee machine like they wanted to be anywhere else. Barbara's name hadn't been spoken yet, but she might as well have been written in neon above the whiteboard. Brent clicked to the next slide. Look, we'll push a patch today, rerun the demo environment tomorrow, and clean up the staging logs. I'll handle messaging with Vetra's tech team myself. That's when the door opened. VP of Sales, Lorna Chen, stepped in holding a piece of paper. She wasn't wearing her usual heels. She wasn't even carrying her laptop, just a single printed email. Her face was chalk. She walked slowly to the head of the table and slid the paper in front of Rick. Then spoke flatly. Vetra has paused all conversations, effective immediately. No one moved, not even Brent. Rick read the email silently, lips pressed tight, then pushed it across the table toward Brent, who picked it up like it might bite him. The words were simple. Following internal review of technical inconsistencies and audit evidence, Vetra Group is halting negotiations with Quantexus, pending further clarification. We reserve the right to pursue due diligence disclosures under Clause 12.4. Brent blinked. Wait, what inconsistencies? They're overreacting. That crash wasn't even a back-end issue. It was UI lag from the test server. He was unraveling now, voice pitching slightly, fingers drumming the table. We warned them about the MVP state. I mean, come on, this isn't on us. Barbara, she didn't prep staging properly before she bailed. That validator module? That wasn't my stop, Rick said, not loud, but final. Brent's mouth hung open mid-sentence. Legal finally opened their laptop. The screen lit up, and on it, line after line of the audit log. Timestamped entries, user IDs, admin actions. One line highlighted in yellow. 7:48:02 a.m. user ID. B-read 7225 deleted /core/validator/pipeline sync.js. Brent stared at it like it was in Sanskrit. Rick turned the laptop toward him, then leaned forward. You made those changes. I was optimizing the flow for the demo. You disabled rollback. I was simplifying. The system's too bloated. Barbara always over-engineered. You wiped the rollback flags and stripped the validator 3 hours before a live pitch. Rick snapped, voice cold now, and then you tried to blame the person who built the thing you gutted. Brent's face went pale. I didn't try to blame. You used your own credential. There's no ambiguity here. Silence. You could hear the HVAC system clicking on. A low hum filled the room, broken only by the clink of someone setting down a coffee mug too hard. HR started taking notes. Lorna stepped back, quietly placed her badge on the table, and walked out. She knew what came next. Brent sank into his chair, shoulders caving in like a paper skeleton caught in rain. Still no one moved. No one defended him. Not Gavin, not legal, not even HR. Barbara wasn't in the room, but her work was, laid out on the screen like a scalpel. And Brent was already bleeding. Boardroom lights at Quantexus were dimmed to that low, sterile hue meant to make bad news feel professional. There was no catered breakfast, no coffee run, no pre-meeting small talk, just 12 people staring at a polished mahogany table like it had answers hidden in the grain. At the head sat the CEO, Greg Mullen, face rigid, fingers steepled under his chin. Legal was present. Finance, too. A few of the senior devs had been asked to sit in, which was never a good sign. Brent, freshly shaved and sweating through his tailored blazer, was seated 2 chairs to the left, no longer leading, no longer posturing, just there. At exactly 9:01 a.m., the conference screen blinked to life and the logo for Vetra Group appeared. Then the camera flicked on. Darryl Franks, the lead buyer, sat dead center in the frame, no suit, no background blur, no performance. Just him, plain as an audit trail. Room held its breath. Franks looked down, glanced sideways off-screen, then leaned forward into the mic. I'll be brief. He paused just long enough for everyone to tense, then dropped it. We don't buy companies that erase products mid-pitch. No soft open. No, we appreciate your time. Just a verbal guillotine. Brent twitched. Now hold on, Franks cut him off with a hand wave so dismissive it might as well have been a slap. Your audit trail is your confession. Line hit like a brick to the solar plexus. Everyone turned toward Brent in unison, as if gravity had shifted toward his chair. Franks continued, we reviewed the logs. We confirmed credential signatures. Your coup, he gestured toward Brent like he was a defective appliance, initiated deletions, disabled rollback protocols, and wiped validator files less than 3 hours before the live demo. Brent opened his mouth, then shut it. There was nowhere to run. Franks glanced off-screen again. We've halted negotiations. Our legal counsel has flagged your pre-acquisition compliance documents under Clause 12.4, which, as you know, covers intentional misrepresentation. Greg, the CEO, cleared his throat. Mr. Franks, I assure you, this isn't reflective of Quantexus as a whole. We were unaware you signed off on the build that was shown. That makes you aware. Franks didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. It was in the precision. No emotion, no drama, just facts being stapled to their collective foreheads. Then, softer like the death knell of a deal, there are other tools on the market, tools with intact rollback logic, tools that don't implode under scrutiny. And just like that, the feed went black. No goodbye, no wave, just $150 million vaporized in a single click. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was loud. HR shifted in her chair. Eagle leaned back and closed her folder. Someone on the board whispered Jesus Christ under their breath. Brent sat like he'd just watched his own funeral from inside the casket. Greg turned to legal. Options, termination clause for cause, immediate. Board vote, unanimous nods like a slow domino fall of heads accepting reality. Effective now, Greg said. Brent stood or tried to. His legs buckled slightly. He looked around the room, searching for something, and out. Hand, even pity, he found none. Not even Gavin would meet his eyes. As security entered, Brent looked at Greg, desperate. I was trying to simplify. That code was messy. I thought. Greg cut him off, cold as marble. You thought you knew better than the person who built it. Brent hesitated at the door, one hand on the frame, still hoping someone would stop this, would say he was right. But all he got was the soft thud of the door shutting behind him. No applause. Oh, thanks, just silence again. But in that silence, one truth rang louder than ever. The person they tried to delete had become the one person who couldn't be erased. And the wreckage Brent left behind, it was tagged, time-stamped, and weaponized by Barbara. The call came at 6:13 p.m., just as the sun was sliding down behind the neighbor's rusted swing set, throwing golden stripes across Barbara's balcony. She was barefoot, wrapped in a threadbare hoodie, sipping lukewarm chamomile like it was champagne. Her phone buzzed once, twice, and she let it ring a moment longer than necessary, just because she could. Unknown number, Virginia area code. She answered with one word, Barbara. A warm voice replied, one she recognized from past emails but had never actually heard out loud. Hi, Barbara. This is Malik James, CTO at Vetra. A pause. Not a dramatic one, just long enough to register that this wasn't a courtesy call. We're building something new, he said. Barbara leaned back in her chair, watching a squirrel decimate her basil plant. Let me guess. With rollback functions this time, he chuckled. Among other things, and we'd like you to lead it. Another pause, this one intentional. Name your terms. She didn't say anything right away. Just looked out over the rooftops, teacup balanced on one knee, watching the world breathe. Are you offering me a job, she said finally, or asking me to design the engine? We're asking you to build the spine. A smile crept into her voice. Good, because I don't do skins. He laughed again, low and real. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll send over the paperwork tonight. You'll have full architectural authority, budget control, report directly to me, and title. There was no hesitation. Principal, that landed. Not because she needed it, she didn't care about titles anymore, because it was the first time someone didn't try to diminish her behind one. She ended the call with a calm, I'll read it over. Then set the phone down, took another sip of tea, and let herself feel it, not victory, not revenge. Arrival, the kind that doesn't need fireworks or press releases. The kind that comes with silence finally working in your favor. The kind that can't be taken because it wasn't handed to you, it was earned. She walked inside, opened her laptop, saw the official notice from Quantexus. Brent Reed, COO, terminated for cause. No fanfare, no statement. Just a pink slip wrapped in corporate language delivered 20 minutes too late to matter. The next morning, a package arrived. Inside, a matte black keycard, a welcome packet, and a security badge with her photo, recent, confident, unsmiling. Under her name, in bold silver letters, one word, principal. She held it for a long moment and slid it into her wallet behind her driver's license and that old sticky note with her daughter's Wi-Fi password on it. Barbara didn't gloat. She didn't post anything cryptic on LinkedIn or text, anyone told you so. She just got dressed and went to build the next thing no one else could. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.